Hi everyone, let's talk about Gloomhaven at last, as if I haven't been talking about Gloomhaven in plenty of other videos. If you have seen any of my, anticipated games or talking about things that you can go and see at Essen and things, I've mentioned Gloomhaven a ton, and if I haven't been mentioning it that much, I've been thinking about it constantly. Since, when was the Kickstarter? It was about a year and a half ago, something like that. It's been gradually building up as the updates kept coming with the Kickstarter, and found out, it's just about to be here. It's just reaching obsession with this game. So I'll say that going into it, I backed it on Kickstarter, and I was super excited about it. So maybe pre-biased to like it, but there have been plenty of games that I won't mention that I've been excited about from Kickstarter, not to the degree of this certainly, that I have been disappointed with. So it's not like just because I paid for it, I am destined to like it. So, went into Gloomhaven with extremely high expectations, and I'll just make a note of where we are so you can, base my impressions on that. So we've played about 13 scenarios in this of various types, and we have only played the characters we started off as. Now that's not a spoiler, it's not necessarily, you don't know what our retirement quests were. We've kept to our starting characters. We haven't unlocked any of those yet. We've unlocked a few bits and bobs along the way that I won't talk about, but we've only played with those characters, so I can only really speak for the one I've played with. So very high expectations going into Gloomhaven. I would say so far in those few scenarios that we've played, well, few comparatively to what's in the game, it's exceeded all of my expectations. It's blown me away. And that is someone that I've avoided spoilers. I don't know anything about the locked classes or envelopes or anything like that, but I have followed, the basics of the game. I've watched the Rada run through plenty of times and the other videos that have been made about it. So knew a fair bit of what to expect to begin with, but didn't really know, what any of the cards did or what the intricate details of the game were. And it's really blown me away. For a start, and this is kind of been expanded upon by, now I've done the playthrough, I have played as 2 more characters. So I've played as 3 different characters, and I've looked at Rachel's deck a little bit and seen what she's been doing as we've been playing. So I've got a sense of 4 of the characters, the 4 of the base characters, and they are so different. They are doing such different things, and you have to think about your character in a different way as well. Like, there are characters that have a lot of cards, and so are there to be quite versatile, can do a lot of turns without having to rest and, lose a turn or randomly lose a card, which could be terrible. It could be the card you desperately need. And, they can tank damage with those cards as well. So it's good that they've got a lot of them. And then there are these characters there that are, like the Mind Thief from the playthrough, that are a lot weaker, but, they have things in their arsenal to make up for that. You have to leverage what they have available. Everything I did in the playthrough was level 1 cards. There's 3 level X cards that can be more complicated or more situational. I just left those out and just took the level 1 cards because I thought, well, I don't know what these characters do at all anyway, so I might as well just take the easier cards. So just with those 2 characters, you're playing in completely different ways, and you both have the ticking clock of the cards in your hand. You have to play 2 no matter what. You have to play 2 cards, even if you're not in a position to use the abilities of one. It's tough luck. You've still got to play the cards. All of your really juicy attacks and abilities that you think, I'm desperate to use this, they are lost when you play them. They go into the lost pile, and unless you are a very, very special person, you are not going to get those lost cards back in this scenario. So it's a kind of form of restraint, but more than that, it's trying to work out the puzzle of the environment you've been presented with, not just the scenario, but how the monsters have reacted to the scenario, how their ability cards have come out and what it's made them do. You have to try and think of, what is the best time to use this, and you are given opportunities as well. Just because you've picked that card doesn't mean you have to do it. You can go in there with a perfect plan that is then, completely scuppered by what the enemies do, or maybe what your allies do. Maybe your allies run in and take them all out or push them away from you. You don't know what can happen because you have to talk in kind of vague terms about what you're doing. So you're not committed. I really like that as well. You just pick your 2 cards, and you can really hope that you're going to do that super powerful attack, but you don't have to do it. You can change your mind at the last minute. If you're not going to get the maximum power out of it, it's not worth losing that card to do a so-so version of that attack. You want it to really blow the enemies out of the water. So it's a really nice thing that that was another thing we had to get to grips with. We played the first scenario 3 times before we won it, with the same characters and everything. I think we might have changed a couple of cards, switched a couple of cards around. But yeah, we didn't realise that time would go so quickly, that deck would be depleted so much. It only takes a few rests and then a couple of cards lost to damage to find yourself in a really, really, really dire situation where if you've only got 4 or 5 cards in your hand and you have to keep resting every couple of turns, it's just, you are spiraling faster and faster, and there's nothing really that you can do about it. So it's a really nice balance between, I desperately want to do these things, but I don't want to end up exhausted and losing the scenario for us, because it's happened a few times where one of us has ended up exhausted and the other one's managed to end the scenario. It's not over if one of you's just exhausted. The other one can continue, can try to continue. So it's not like it's life or death that everybody survives. You can work that out between you as well, and just realise that, I've played too many cards. I'm just not going to last. So don't worry about standing back and healing me and things. Just go and do the scenario. Do what we've came here to do. Another thing involved with time is the aspect of loot as well. I really like that. Well, I would love it if you just automatically got loot and, the loot at the end of the scenario just appeared to you. That would be fantastic, because who doesn't want more money? But making it so that you either have to move on to that hex or you have to use loot actions is another nice touch, because it limits the economy of the game for a start. You're not just flooded with money. You have to have earned that money by giving up actions, which can make you really selfish as well. Because if you are stood in a situation like we were earlier, where we were surrounded by money, and you hoover all of it up in your very, very fast loot action because you're the speedy mind thief, nobody else gets any of that. You can't choose to not loot some of it. You've taken it all away. And it's also kind of selfish because you've used an action for that. You could have been moving to the next objective. You could have been attacking or doing something to an enemy that was out there, but instead you're just stood there looting. So it's another interesting trade-off in the game. So the enemies, we've probably come across a lot of the enemies in the game now over the different scenarios. And I won't say anything about what they are, but I will say that there is a lot of variety in what they do, and a lot of really, really satisfying things that they do. Not satisfying in that they really mess you up, but they do unexpected things and really nice things that just keep making me stop and saying, it's really annoying that he's doing that, but the fact that he can is really, really nice. What things might people think are negatives? There can be, depending on your luck really, there can be a lot of shuffling involved. There are 2 shuffle cards, I think, in each enemy deck. So 2 out of 8. So 1 in 4 chance that you're going to get a shuffle card and have to shuffle the enemy's deck at the end of the round. Everybody to start with in their attack modifier deck has that double and null damage modifier. You have to shuffle at the end of the round when you've revealed one of those. So potentially you could just keep revealing enemies that mean you have to shuffle this deck every round. It could be a problem if you get really unlucky that way. Hasn't been in our experience. It's happened a few times where we have to keep shuffling it at the end of the round, but it's not really a problem, even with 2 of us. And there can be a lot more enemy types out than this. It's not really been much upkeep to just have to shuffle those decks. There's usually 1 or 2 things that you need to shuffle every couple of rounds. It's not really been much of a problem for us. I've seen a couple of things about the difficulty. As I said, it took us 3 tries to do the first scenario, But I feel like that was getting to grips with how the game works, how you need to play the game, but also how you need to play your characters. Your characters need to be treated in a certain way, and getting to grips with that took a couple of games and a couple of looks through all of the cards that we've got available. I don't think it was the game just being hard. Having said that, though, you can adjust the difficulty. You can. This was level 1. This scenario, so the scenario level you average everybody's level out and then divide it by 2 and then round up, and that's your scenario level. So at the start, it's 1. To play on normal difficulty, it's 1, and this was difficulty 1. And if you are finding it a cakewalk for some reason, you can adjust the difficulty up. The rewards are better, but obviously the scenario is going to be a lot harder. Sometimes things can get introduced in leveling up the scenario that you are really not expecting. So be careful with that, because we have obviously, through leveling up in the normal way, our average has gone up and we've had to adjust the scenario level. We've never moved it off normal, but we have been very surprised by some of the things that have appeared on those monster cards that the easier monsters didn't have. So when I backed Gloomhaven, and the reasons I backed Gloomhaven were, I really like the fantasy setting and the idea of a dungeon crawl, but I've never really been very interested in the ones that we've played. The standard descent formula, it mainly comes down to dice, doesn't it, really? Just chucking all of these dice, and then the whole game is decided by what we rolled on those. It's you sometimes get all of these different abilities, but it's pretty obvious what you need to do. It's pretty obvious which one you need to use in a given situation. So I was very interested in one that didn't use dice at all. And, it can be dismissed easily by saying the cards are just replacing the dice. But the fact that you can customize this deck, and you can customize it a lot as well, that is a really huge plus for me. So I wanted something different in a dungeon crawl game, and the card system that we saw at the time was really fantastic. Another huge part was the fact that it was legacy. Not entirely, it's mixture of campaign and legacy elements. I don't think we played Pandemic Legacy at that point when the Kickstarter was on, but just the idea of an evolving story, a ton of scenarios, paths that diverge based on the choices that you make. All of these things that you see in video games that can be really, really nicely utilized in a board game. And Gloomhaven, so far, it's still first impressions, but it has done it fantastically. It really evokes that feeling that you would get in a big epic RPG game, of starting out as these weak people with a vague purpose, and as the story goes on, and you don't even have to go down the main story, it's the perfect... I can't remember what video it was, or maybe it was a podcast where they had mentioned that Isaac, the designer, had been influenced a lot by Skyrim, and that really, really kept popping up in my head every time we kept seeing things in actually playing the game. When you put those stickers on the map, it is like when it appears on your map in Skyrim. And just the whole feel of the game does feel like this, living, breathing world that your story is taking place in. Like a lot of fantastic, stories, it feels like you are just a part of this thing. There is a whole world going on that doesn't care about what you're doing. There's a whole world that exists. Despite your little adventures, you are, dipping into this world and having effects on it, but the whole thing is, going on within you and without you. That was what I wanted when I'd backed it, and so far it's not only met all of that, it has far exceeded it. I knew there was going to be that many scenarios in there, but I didn't realise, just how big it was going to feel when you started playing it. And in the scenarios that we've played, there have been hugely different things as well. It hasn't just been, set this up, now you're versus these monsters, kill all of them now, please. There are definite tweaks to scenarios, and almost always there are reasons why things are happening as well. It's not just you're versus this monster, now go do it. It's, well, this story thing happened, this is why you're against this monster, or this story thing happened, this is why this special rule is in effect, or this is the goal of the scenario. It really ties in really nicely. I think I should stop there because I keep veering into spoilers and having to cut it out. so far, as I've said, absolutely loving this. It was my most anticipated game of last year and this year, and so far it's really, really just been a fantastic experience, and can't wait for it to continue. We've played it almost every day for the week that we've had it. I think we've had it just over a week now, and I would love for that to continue. I can't see it continuing quite that often, but absolutely loving playing it. Maybe I'll do another video, maybe with spoilers or something, but when we're further along, when we've unlocked some of the characters and things, because I love them. I love opening envelopes and boxes and things. I want to see what's inside, and I want to see what else these characters can do, because really, really excited by what I've seen just in the 4 starting characters that we've seen so far. So nothing but love for Gloomhaven. There's a couple of little nitpicks that I mentioned before. So that is Gloomhaven. Fantastic, fantastic, and I will go back to playing my normal campaign now. Thanks for watching, everyone, and see you later.